What if everything we've been taught about the origin of civilization is wrong? What if humanity has not climbed a single mountain of progress but survived the rise and fall of entire forgotten worlds? Welcome back, seeker of lost truths. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for deep dives into the stories history tried to bury. Comment below where you're watching from and what time it is for you. You'd be surprised how many of us are drawn to this mystery in the late hours. And if this video speaks to something you've always felt that the official story doesn't add up, share it. Let others know that you're starting to understand the question hidden in the title. What if we are not the first civilization, but the seventh? Imagine this. Everything you know about the story of human civilization, its slow climb from stone tools to cities, from firelight to fiber optics, was never the full story. Imagine that history as we know it is not just incomplete, but deliberately constructed, a polished fragment of a shattered mirror. For centuries, we have accepted a timeline that begins 12,000 years ago, with scattered hunter-gatherer bands gradually forming complex societies. But what if that timeline only represents the ashes after a fire? What if we are not the first, but the seventh human civilization to walk this earth? The first clues come not from dusty myths or ancient legends, but from the earth itself, out of nowhere. Vast stone structures appear in the archaeological record fully formed, mathematically precise, engineered with a mastery that should have taken millennia to evolve. There are no gradual prototypes, no crude experiments leading up to these wonders. They arrive like lightning, sudden, perfect, and out of place. Ancient calendars chart celestial movements with eerie accuracy. Stone monuments align to stars with precision that would require generations of sky watching. And yet, according to textbooks, the builders of these monuments were supposedly just beginning to sharpen stones. The official story breaks down under the weight of its own contradictions. As you drift closer to the edge of accepted history, the ground beneath your understanding begins to fracture. In deserts, colossal ruins rise without a culture to explain them. In mountain ranges, stones are cut and fitted with such surgical precision that even modern tools struggle to replicate their seams. Beneath the sea, geometric city grids lie silent under centuries of silt and salt, and deeper still, beneath layers of ancient sediment artifacts, appear in geological strata that should predate humanity itself. Tools, metals, even machined components emerge from coal beds millions of years old, as though the earth is revealing a secret it was never meant to keep. No single discovery is enough to rewrite history, but the pattern is too consistent to ignore. The deeper you dig, literally and metaphorically, the more you find things that should not exist. That whisper of a lost intelligence, of forgotten mastery. These aren't misinterpretations or random hoaxes. They're anomalies that survive despite active efforts to discredit, suppress, or erase them. They tell us that before us, there were others. Something organized, something advanced, something that ended so completely that not even its name survived, something with the ability to build wonders and vanish without a trace. And here comes the question that shakes the foundation of all certainty. What kind of force could wipe out an entire civilization so thoroughly that only whispers remain? Not just ruin it, but erase it so cleanly that it could be mistaken for a myth. Fire alone could not do it, nor could water, ice, perhaps, but even glaciers leave behind evidence. Darkness? That's symbolic, but combine them: fire, flood, frost, and shadow, and you get a cataclysm, a planetary reset, triggered by forces older than human memory. Earth has done this before, not once, not twice, but 6 times, and we may be standing at the crest of the 7th. This is not speculation pulled from fringe pseudoscience or fantasy novels. It is a theory grounded in geology, anthropology, astronomy, and the deepest parts of our cultural DNA. Imagine our world not as a linear march forward, but as a loop. Civilizations rise, then collapse so violently that history shatters like glass. Survivors flee to forests, to mountaintops, to caves. They cling to what they can, their knowledge reduced to myth, their wisdom passed down in rituals, in symbols, in whispers, and when the dust settles, their descendants emerge into a quieter world, believing themselves to be the first, when in fact, they are only the aftermath. Suddenly, the ancient stories begin to make sense. The tales of floods that drowned entire nations, the legends of fire from the sky, the myths of wandering survivors, guided by gods who taught them how to farm, how to build, how to live. These aren't fantasies. They are trauma, cultural memory passed through generations, encoded in myth because the truth was too dangerous, too fragile, too sacred to be written plainly. They are the scattered footprints of civilizations that walked before us and fell. If this theory is true, we are not the apex of human achievement. We are merely the latest survivors. We are the seventh civilization, and the evidence of the six before us still flickers beneath our oceans, inside our mountains, under our deserts, and even within our own DNA. It whispers in artifacts that shouldn't exist. It pulses in the foundations of structures older than history. It lingers in stories so ancient they've become legend. And it is not just forgotten, it is hidden, because if this truth emerged in full light, everything would change. Governments would lose control. Institutions would crumble. The illusion of progress would collapse. And that's the most terrifying truth of all. We are not moving forward. We are standing on ruins. The ruins of ages that came before, that reached heights we cannot yet comprehend, and fell harder than we can imagine. Some vanished beneath oceans, some under clouds of ash, others into cold and darkness, all of them shattered by forces either from within or far beyond. So now we are left with the question that chills the soul. What destroyed them? And more urgently, what is waiting for us? Because if this cycle is real, then the clock is ticking. Each rise is followed by a fall, and every golden age carries the seed of its own undoing. The warning signs aren't just in myth, they're in stone, in sky, in sediment. But most of all, they are in us. We are drawn to these stories not because they are fantasy, but because they feel familiar. We feel their weight in our bones. We see the shadow of collapse on the horizon. And some part of us, deep and primal, remembers. History, as taught in schools and universities, rests on a scaffold of certainty. It presents humanity's progress as a slow march from stone and fire towards silicon and steel. But this certainty begins to crack when we examine the physical evidence, the stubborn, strange, and silent artifacts that do not belong. These are the anomalies that refuse to fit, the impossible objects found embedded in rock layers millions of years old, or buried so deep in the earth that their presence can only mean one thing: someone came before us, and they knew things we've only just rediscovered. Out-of-place artifacts, or OOPArts, are not a recent invention of conspiracists or sensationalists. They are real discoveries, recorded by miners, archaeologists, and geologists, often reluctantly. Among the most confounding is a small, cube-shaped object of machined metal discovered in a lump of coal in Austria in the late 1800s. The coal itself was 60 million years old. Yet when the rock was broken open, this perfectly shaped metal object, with symmetrical sides and sharp, machined edges, fell out. No natural force can produce such geometry. No geological process carves perfect cubes from iron alloy, and no hominin, according to the textbooks, should have existed at that time, let alone one capable of metallurgy. Then there is the Nampa figurine, a tiny sculpture resembling a human woman, found in Idaho in the 19th century during a well-digging operation. It was pulled from a layer more than 90 meters below the surface, in strata dated to at least 2 million years ago. Critics called it a hoax. Yet the drill was sealed, and the depth confirmed. Why would early humans carve figurines in a time before Homo sapiens had even emerged? Unless the human story is far older and far more cyclical than we imagine, the mystery deepens with the discovery of what appeared to be a spark plug encased in a chunk of mineralized rock found near Olancha, California. The artifact, known as the Coso artifact, showed features shockingly similar to modern ceramic insulators and electrical terminals. X-ray analysis revealed a central metallic core surrounded by what resembled a coil structure. The rock in which it was found was estimated to be at least 500,000 years old. Again, too old for modern industry, too precise for nature, and too advanced for any known ancient toolmaker. Throughout the 20th century, dozens of such artifacts surfaced: brass bells embedded in coal, iron nails lodged in solid quartz, carved stone balls with geometric patterns found in South America, and tools with designs too sophisticated for their time. In England, a metal thread was discovered running through a block of stone dated to the Carboniferous period, over 300 million years ago. Each find is usually dismissed, quietly catalogued, or even removed from official archives. When questioned, institutions offer vague explanations: contamination, mislabeling, misunderstanding, but the anomalies pile up, repeating the same riddle across geography and time. And then there are the tools. Hammers with iron heads so pure they defy 19th century forging methods, found embedded in Cretaceous rock. The London hammer, discovered in Texas, was encased in stone that geologists claim predates the dinosaurs. Its handle had begun to turn to coal, a process requiring immense time under pressure. If the dating is even remotely accurate, someone with metallurgy skills lived on Earth long before any known civilization. Critics argue these finds are misinterpreted, that the surrounding material may be old, but the objects somehow infiltrated the rock later through cracks, soil shifts, or even hoaxes. But how often can that explanation apply before it becomes another form of denial? When artifacts appear in unbroken stone, in deep-sea sediments, in forgotten mines far below any modern layer, the possibility of a lost age becomes harder to ignore. The repetition of this pattern across continents North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond demands a better answer than coincidence. Moreover, the material composition of these artifacts sometimes defies even modern understanding. Metallurgical tests on some OO parts reveal alloy mixtures unknown in ancient times, complex blends of aluminum, vanadium, titanium. Some show traces of machining, spiral grooves, or drill marks. These are not random chunks of ore or meteorite fragments. They are engineered, purposeful, functional, and they exist in places where no advanced human society should have been. Worse still is the pattern of disappearance. Many researchers who documented these anomalies found themselves discredited, ridiculed, or silenced. Entire reports vanished from public archives. Museums placed controversial artifacts into storage, never to be displayed again. Some independent laboratories had their funding pulled or their permits revoked. In case after case, the pattern is eerily similar. As soon as an artifact suggests a deeper past, access is denied, the story reframed, the evidence quietly buried. Why? The most common theory is simple convenience. These artifacts threaten the accepted historical framework. If a spark plug is found in a rock 500,000 years old, then either the rock's dating is wrong, or our entire model of human history is incomplete. Either answer challenges institutions, textbooks, and reputations built over generations. Acknowledging these anomalies would require rewriting the story of civilization from scratch, and few academic empires are willing to do that. But there is another, more haunting possibility: suppression by design. What if those in power already suspect or even know that humanity has risen and fallen multiple times? What if they understand that we are not unique, not unprecedented, but just the most recent iteration of something far older? In that case, suppressing the truth is not just academic preservation, it becomes a mechanism of control, because if people knew we stood on the ruins of 6 forgotten worlds, they might begin to question their place in this one. They might begin to prepare not for progress, but for survival. And yet, the artifacts still surface. In private collections, in rural digs, in forgotten basements and locked museum drawers. They are the scattered bones of a lost age, an age whose story was written in metal and stone, then shattered and buried by forces we still don't understand. If we listen closely, they whisper not of fantasy, but of memory, not imagination, but inheritance. They are fragments of a broken mirror, reflecting a world we have lost, and a warning of the world we are about to become. For centuries, myths have spoken of cities swallowed by the sea of temples pulled beneath the waves in a single night, of islands that vanished under monstrous tides. These stories were dismissed as allegories, metaphors, perhaps echoes of ancient tsunamis or storms exaggerated over generations. But as technology advances and our eyes turn toward the deep, those legends begin to take on a disturbing solidity, because beneath the oceans, buried under silt and salt and time, we are finding the impossible ruins that should not exist, structures where no civilization is supposed to have ever been. Beneath the waves, off the coast of Japan, lies the Yonaguni Monument, a colossal structure that at first glance appears natural. It is carved from sandstone, massive and angular, resembling a collapsed geological formation. But divers who descend into its depths quickly realize that nature does not sculpt right angles in stair-step formations. Nature does not carve terraces with perfect symmetry or passageways aligned to cardinal points. Nature does not design with purpose, but Yonaguni does. Parallel steps, wide platforms, drainage channels, retaining walls, even what appear to be ceremonial altars and avenues. These are the hallmarks of intention, of architecture. And it sits 25 meters beneath the sea. Most geologists dismiss Yonaguni as a freak of erosion, a quirk of tectonic activity. But erosion does not explain the pyramid-shaped features or the tool marks visible on certain surfaces. It does not explain why the site aligns with the rising sun during the solstices. It does not explain the faces carved into its stone weathered, but distinct, or the upright pillars that resemble megaliths known from terrestrial ancient cultures. The monument likely sank during the last great melt at the end of the last ice age. When sea levels rose more than 100 meters, that places its construction during a time when, according to mainstream history, humans were still chasing mammoths. Farther west, off the coast of India, near the ancient city of Dwarka, another mystery waits beneath the tide. Ancient Sanskrit texts spoke of a magnificent kingdom ruled by the god Krishna, a city with palaces of gold, wide boulevards, and shining temples. It was said to have been lost to the sea in a cataclysm. For generations, this was considered myth. But in 2001, sonar scans revealed symmetrical grids, walls, and foundations 30 meters below the ocean surface in the Gulf of Khambhat. Stone columns lay scattered across the seabed. Pottery shards and tools were dredged up, carbon dated to more than 9,000 years ago. If these dates are accurate, they predate the Indus Valley civilization and rewrite the timeline of Indian history. And yet, the Dwarka discovery was quietly dismissed. Funding dried up. Access became restricted. Reports vanished from public record. The usual pattern of disappearance followed, but for a brief moment, the curtain lifted, and we saw a glimpse of something ancient, organized, and technological, something that had stood proudly until the ocean took it back. In the Caribbean, divers have long whispered of the Bimini Road, a strange arrangement of limestone blocks off the coast of the Bahamas. The stones are large, uniform, and laid in a linear fashion that seems engineered. Some resemble roads or harbor walls, and their alignment with the shoreline raises uncomfortable questions. Mainstream scientists claim it's a natural formation, but the precision of the layout, the right angles, and the interlocking fit of the stones have prompted others to ask, what if this was part of a city, a port, a monument? The area lies within what was once above sea level during the last glacial maximum, when vast areas of the now submerged Bahama banks were dry land. If something was built there, it would now be underwater, half buried and eroded by millennia of storms and currents. Across the planet, sonar scans and diver expeditions repeat the same pattern. Off the coast of Cuba, a Canadian research team in the early 2000s discovered what they described as megalithic structures more than 600 meters beneath the surface. The site included geometric shapes, pyramidal structures, and what appeared to be city blocks. The images sparked brief media attention and then disappeared. Requests for further exploration were denied. No official expedition followed. The site faded from public awareness, as if it had never existed. In Southeast Asia, the Sunda Shelf holds even greater potential. During the last ice age, the shelf formed a vast landmass connecting present-day Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. When the glaciers melted, this entire area flooded, creating the archipelagos we see today. Ancient oral traditions from the region speak of a drowned kingdom, a lost paradise beneath the waves. Modern sonar scans have revealed straight channels, terraced seafloor depressions, and rectangular structures stretching for kilometers. Some believe this may be the original homeland remembered in stories of Mu or Lemuria, names long associated with lost civilizations. But the most disturbing aspect of these sites is not what we find, it's what happens after we find them. Time and again, the moment a submerged ruin challenges the conventional timeline, it is shut down, dismissed, or ignored. Diving zones are closed without explanation. Research teams lose access. Sonar data disappears. The stated reasons range from environmental protection to military interference. But the result is always the same: silence. And still, the oceans remember. The great floods at the end of the Pleistocene reshaped the earth. They drowned coastlines, erased cities, and forced entire cultures to retreat inland. The stories of Atlantis, of the Great Deluge, of the rising sea swallowing civilization, these are not isolated myths, they are global memories, recorded by every surviving ancient culture. Indigenous Australians speak of lands that once connected their islands, now drowned. Pacific Islanders chant of ancestral homes that sank beneath the sea. The Egyptians spoke of Zep Tepi, a time before the flood, when gods walked the earth and knowledge flourished. Even Plato, drawing from older sources, described a powerful seafaring empire that vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night. Mainstream historians chalk this up to collective imagination, but what if imagination is simply memory without context? What if these myths are our only surviving record of a past we barely understand? Because here is the truth. The ocean is not just a grave. It is an archive. It holds the shattered libraries of forgotten ages, the ruins of cities that once hummed with life, and the secrets of people who looked to the stars and built wonders beneath them. And as our technology allows us to see further into the deep, the truth becomes harder to ignore. We are not the first, and we will not be the last. Long before sonar traced drowned coastlines, or archaeologists puzzled over stones cut with impossible precision, the most enduring evidence of earlier civilizations was already present, carried quietly from generation to generation. It lived not in ruins or relics, but inside the human body itself, hidden in strands of DNA. This evidence waited in silence, unreadable, until modern science finally learned how to listen. And when it did, what emerged was not a simple story of evolution, but a whisper of survival through catastrophe. Human DNA is often described as a biological history book. Every mutation, every adaptation, every vanished branch of our family tree leaves behind faint traces. Most of these changes make sense. They reflect diet, climate, disease, altitude, or migration. But every so often, geneticists encounter something that refuses to behave like a normal adaptation, a cluster of traits that appears too coordinated, too rare, and too widely scattered across the globe to be explained by chance alone. This is where the story becomes unsettling. Less than 0.5% of the global population carries a peculiar genetic signature. It appears in isolated pockets of humanity that should have no shared ancestry in recent history. Among certain highland communities in India, among small coastal groups in Southeast Asia, among indigenous Australians in the far north, among the Basque people of Western Europe, these populations share no common language, no recorded migration path, no obvious historical connection, and yet, deep in their genomes, the same markers appear again and again. The traits linked to this genetic cluster are subtle, but remarkable. Individuals who carry it often show enhanced tolerance to low oxygen levels, allowing their bodies to function efficiently in conditions that would exhaust others. There is unusual physical endurance, not the kind trained in athletes, but a baseline resilience under prolonged stress. Even more intriguing are neurological patterns revealed through brain imaging. Certain regions associated with spatial awareness, environmental mapping, and pattern recognition show heightened activity. These are the parts of the brain responsible for navigation, for understanding geometry intuitively, for reading landscapes without conscious calculation. What makes this truly strange is that these traits do not appear independently. They arrive as a package, inherited together, as if shaped by a specific and repeated selective pressure. This is not how random mutation works. Evolution typically tinkers, adjusting one feature at a time over vast periods. But here, the genome behaves as though it remembers something, as though it was shaped rapidly, under extreme conditions, where only those with a very specific set of abilities survived. Mainstream explanations struggle to account for this. Some scientists propose that the cluster originated in ancient high-altitude populations, where oxygen scarcity would favor such traits. But this explanation collapses when the same markers appear in lowland coastal groups and island communities. Others suggest interbreeding with extinct hominin species. Yet the geographic distribution does not match known Denisovan or Neanderthal ranges. The puzzle refuses to settle into any familiar evolutionary box. The pattern becomes clearer when cultural memory is brought into the picture. Many of the populations carrying this genetic cluster also share oral traditions that speak of catastrophe, stories of rising seas, of ancestral lands lost beneath water, of journeys undertaken to escape destruction. In Southeast Asia, legends describe cities drowned by floods and survivors fleeing inland. In Australia, ancient songs speak of coastlines that once stretched far beyond the horizon. Among the Basque, whose language defies classification, myths tell of a people who endured a great darkness and emerged changed. These stories are not identical, but their emotional core is the same: survival after the end of a world. Genetic analysis adds another layer. Some genes in this cluster influence cellular repair in ways strikingly similar to adaptations seen in deep-diving mammals. Others affect metabolism under prolonged low sunlight conditions, as though shaped by years of darkness or ash-filled skies. One gene shows evidence of selective pressure far older than 50,000 years, older than the accepted timeline for complex human societies. It is as if these traits were forged not by slow environmental shifts, but by sudden, repeated catastrophes. Most unsettling of all is what epigenetics reveals. These genes are not static. Chemical markers attached to them suggest they can become more active depending on environmental conditions. In recent decades, researchers have noticed subtle changes. As climate patterns destabilize, as atmospheric composition shifts, as magnetic fields wander, these ancient sequences show signs of increased expression. It is almost as though the genome recognizes the return of conditions it has encountered before, almost as though the body remembers something the conscious mind has forgotten. This does not mean that carriers of this genetic cluster are superior or destined for anything extraordinary. These traits do not guarantee intelligence, strength, or success. They represent something quieter and far older, an inheritance of survival, an internal compass tuned not to progress, but to endurance, a biological echo of people who lived through fire, flood, cold, and darkness, and passed on the only thing they could, the ability to adapt when the world breaks. If earlier civilizations were erased by sudden global upheaval, then only a fraction of humanity would have survived each collapse. Those survivors would have been shaped by extreme selection pressures, forced to endure environments that bore little resemblance to the stable world that came before. Over thousands of years, as conditions normalized, most of these traits would fade, but not all of them. A few would remain, dormant but intact, waiting. This reframes the flood myths, the legends of chosen survivors, the stories of remnant peoples guided by instinct rather than knowledge. They are not metaphors for moral lessons. They are reflections of real events etched into both culture and biology. Humanity did not start over from nothing after each collapse. It carried fragments forward, not just in memory and stone, but in flesh and blood. When viewed this way, the scattered clues of ancient architecture, submerged cities, and impossible artifacts converge into a single narrative. Civilization rises, catastrophe strikes, knowledge shatters, survivors scatter, and something of the old world survives. Hidden in places no flood or fire can fully erase, the genome becomes the last archive, the final library when all others burn. This does not prove that earlier civilizations possessed technologies identical to ours. It suggests something more profound. Humanity has faced the end of the world before, and some part of us remembers, not as clear images or conscious warnings, but as instincts, adaptations, and quiet unease when the familiar world begins to feel unstable again. The evidence is not just beneath our feet or under the oceans. It is inside us. And if the past is indeed cyclical, if civilizations rise and fall like seasons, then this living memory may be the most important inheritance of all, because it suggests that while worlds can be erased, humanity itself is shaped to endure the turning. And that realization leads inevitably to the next question. If our bodies remember earlier worlds, what were those worlds capable of building before they vanished? Across the surface of the earth stand stone monuments so massive, so precise, and so ancient that they have puzzled generations of architects, engineers, and scholars. They are treated as triumphs of early civilization, as evidence of human ingenuity awakening for the first time. And yet, the closer we look, the more something unsettling emerges. These structures do not resemble beginnings. They resemble echoes of knowledge that did not start with the civilizations who inherited them, but ended with them. Their presence raises a chilling question: what kind of intelligence came before us? And why did it disappear? The Great Pyramid of Giza is perhaps the most iconic of these anomalies. It rises from the desert not like a primitive experiment, but like a finished masterpiece. Its alignment to true north is more accurate than most modern buildings. Its base dimensions encode mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio. Its internal passages, shafts, and chambers are laid out with geometric and astronomical precision that would require not just tools, but an understanding of Earth as a sphere, of precession, and of advanced surveying. And yet, we are told it was built with copper chisels and ropes, by a Bronze Age society whose technology should have been centuries away from such mastery. The deeper one looks, the more the standard explanation phrase. Beneath its familiar limestone casing lies a foundation carved from stone, far harder than the tools said to have shaped it. The bedrock was leveled to within fractions of an inch across an area larger than 5 football fields. Blocks weighing up to 80 tons were transported, and fitted with a precision no modern construction crew would attempt without lasers and cranes. And remarkably, as we dig deeper beneath Giza, we find even older structures, cavities, shafts, and chambers weathered by water in a place where rain has not fallen in thousands of years. The deeper the layer, the greater the mystery. This same inverted pattern appears across the world. At Sacsayhuaman in Peru, stone walls tower with an unnatural perfection. The stones, some weighing over 100 tons, are cut into irregular, puzzle-like shapes that interlock without mortar and fit so tightly that not even a razor blade can pass between them. No one knows how they were moved, shaped, or lifted. The Inca, to whom these structures are credited, themselves said they did not build them. They inherited them. Their work is visible atop the foundations. Less precise, less massive, clearly from a different age. As with Giza, the oldest layers are the most advanced. Across the ocean, in the ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico, pyramids rise in a layout that mirrors the planets of our solar system. The Pyramid of the Sun is built over a deep cave, reshaped into a clover-shaped chamber whose purpose remains unknown. The Avenue of the Dead runs through the city at an angle aligned not to the solstice or equinox, but to the setting point of a specific star, one that aligned only thousands of years before the civilization we credit with building it ever emerged. Again, the builders show a mastery not only of architecture, but of the heavens. In China, entire pyramid fields lie hidden beneath layers of soil and trees, camouflaged by time. Officially classified as burial mounds, many have yet to be excavated, but satellite imagery reveals their orientation to celestial events that no longer occur due to shifts in Earth's axial tilt. Beneath the surface, ground-penetrating radar shows stone chambers, geometric layouts, and architectural planning that mimics structures found half a world away. Are we to believe that civilizations separated by continents and millennia spontaneously developed the same megalithic obsession? Or did they inherit a template from a common point, forgotten source? The Cyclopean walls of Europe, so named because the stones are so massive, ancient Greeks believed only giants could have built them, share the same architectural fingerprint. They appear in Italy, Turkey, Armenia, and the Balkans, with no clear origin, often placed in locations of astronomical significance or geomagnetic anomaly. The same methods of interlocking stones without mortar, the same disregard for carving uniform shapes, the same inexplicable precision. These are not the hallmarks of early experimentation, they are the signatures of mastery. What ties all these sites together is not culture, or time period, or language. It is pattern, enormous stone blocks, impossible tolerances, alignment to celestial bodies, a foundation older and more advanced than the layers above it. There is no evolutionary arc, no gradual improvement. The oldest structures are the most precise. The later additions are crude imitations. This reversal defies the natural progression of technology. Skills do not usually appear at full strength and degrade over time unless the original knowledge was lost and only fragments remained. There is also the strange matter of location. Many of these megalithic sites sit on fault lines or atop mineral-rich geological formations. Quartz, basalt, magnetite, materials known for their piezoelectric or magnetic properties. Some sites align with global energy grids, proposed by researchers like ley line theorists. Others seem to interact with natural resonance fields in ways we are only beginning to understand. Could it be that these structures were not just temples or tombs, but machines, resonators, monuments that interacted with Earth's energy in ways modern science has yet to grasp? If these structures were purely symbolic, we would expect more variation. If they were simply for burial, we would not need such precision. If they were only for ceremony, we would not need blocks weighing hundreds of tons. But if they were the remnants of an earlier civilization's attempt to harness forces we've forgotten, then everything changes. They are not beginnings, they are endings. the last whispers of a world that once understood the language of stone and stars, yet mainstream academia refuses to connect the dots. Each structure is treated in isolation, each anomaly explained away as an outlier. But taken together, a pattern emerges, a pattern of knowledge that rose, flourished, and then vanished, leaving behind monuments too durable to destroy and too precise to ignore. And if we are the seventh civilization, as the evidence suggests, then these monuments are not just marvels. They are warnings, reminders carved into the bedrock of time, reminders that humanity has stood at the edge of greatness before and fallen. What force swept away the architects of these wonders? What erased not just their cities, but their knowledge, their books, their tools, their languages? Why are only the stones left? The answer may lie in what comes next, in the investigation of the vanished cultures themselves, those 6 forgotten worlds whose final creations still stand, waiting to be understood. If the world has hosted not 1 but 7 great civilizations, then 6 must have come before our own. And if the megaliths, the artifacts, and the genetic echoes are to be believed, those civilizations were not crude or primitive. They were complex, widespread, and capable of astonishing feats. But they are gone, entire ages of humanity, reduced to whispers and ruins. The question is no longer whether they existed, but where they existed and why they fell. As we peel back the layers of Earth's forgotten past, a pattern of rise and destruction emerges. 6 advanced cultures, each shattered by forces as immense as they are familiar. The first of these lost worlds may have risen on what is now the Sunda Shelf, the vast landmass that once connected Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. During the last ice age, this shelf was dry land, a fertile plain crisscrossed with rivers and dotted with lakes. Recent sonar mapping has revealed the traces of channel systems, terraces, and possible foundations beneath the sea. Before it was swallowed by the rising tides of melting glaciers, this land could have supported millions. Many Southeast Asian myths speak of a sunken homeland, a paradise consumed by water. If an ancient society flourished here, its end would have been swift and brutal, a flood not of myth, but of geological certainty. Another candidate for lost civilization lies beneath the Sahara. Today, it is an ocean of sand, barren and lifeless, but less than 10,000 years ago. It was green, an Eden of rivers, lakes, and savanna. Rock art scattered across the desert shows boats, herds of cattle, and bustling communities. Some images even depict beings in strange garb, interpreted by some as gods, by others as memories of another kind of people entirely. Beneath the sands, satellite imaging has uncovered geometric formations and subsurface anomalies, hinting at buried settlements or megalithic structures. When the climate shifted, the desert expanded, and if a civilization once thrived there, it was entombed beneath dunes that now stretch for thousands of kilometers. Far to the north, another vast landmass once linked Asia and North America, Beringia. This region, which now lies beneath the frigid Bering Strait, was once a rich grassland teeming with life. It was more than a migration route, it was a homeland. Evidence suggests it remained above sea level for thousands of years, longer than previously believed. Genetic clues found in Siberian and Native American populations suggest deep roots in this vanished region. If a civilization took hold there, it would have been one adapted to cold, to vast open plains, and perhaps to working with large animals. As the ice receded and the seas rose, Beringia disappeared, its people forced to scatter east and west, carrying only fragments of what they once knew. The Indus Valley civilization is one of the few ancient cultures officially recognized for its mystery. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa show urban planning beyond their supposed era: grid layouts, sophisticated drainage, standardized brick sizes, and precise measurement systems. Yet their writing remains undeciphered, their origin unclear, and their collapse abrupt. Some layers beneath these cities show signs of older, less understood construction, hints of a culture even more ancient than the Indus. Whether the Harappans were the descendants of a much older civilization or the final expression of one already in decline remains unknown. But the sudden silence in the archaeological record suggests a catastrophe not of slow decay, but of rapid erasure. Across the Mediterranean lie islands scattered like breadcrumbs: Crete, Sardinia, Cyprus, Malta. Each holds ruins older than their surrounding cultures. Malta's megalithic temples predate the pyramids. Sardinia's nuraghe towers remain unexplained. Crete's Minoans left behind signs of advanced seafaring and hydraulic engineering, and yet many of these civilizations vanished without clear cause. Some suggest earthquakes, others point to volcanic activity or tsunamis, but in each case, the pattern is the same: an unexpected disappearance, followed by a cultural blackout. Their maritime capabilities suggest a widespread influence, and their sudden loss implies an event or series of events powerful enough to erase not just cities, but memory. Perhaps the most enigmatic of the six lies not in the Old World, but in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. For centuries, the jungle was assumed to be untouched wilderness, incapable of supporting large populations. But new technologies like LiDAR have peeled back the canopy, revealing vast networks of roads, canals, earthworks, and even pyramidal structures. These are not the remnants of small villages. They are the bones of a sprawling civilization, perhaps millions strong, that once engineered the land itself. Bioengineered soil known as terra preta suggests an understanding of ecology and sustainability far ahead of its time. When European disease and colonization arrived, what remained of this world collapsed. But even before that, oral traditions speak of earlier cities lost to fire, flood, or cosmic events. The jungle did not preserve them. It swallowed them whole. What connects all six of these lost civilizations is not simply their existence, it is the abruptness of their endings. They do not fade from the record in a slow decline. They vanish. Geologically speaking, in an instant, ice cores, sediment layers, and pollen records confirm sudden climate shifts, massive floods, supervolcanoes, cosmic impacts, and extended winters that blotted out the sun. Earth has passed through multiple cataclysms, and each time, civilization, whatever form it took, was swept away. Survivors fled. Stories became myth. Technologies were lost, not because they failed, but because the world around them collapsed too completely to sustain them. But even in collapse, memory persists. Across continents and cultures, we find echoes of the same story. A golden age, a time of knowledge and order, a sudden disaster, and a scattered people, preserving what little they could. These stories reappear centuries or millennia later, in civilizations that seem to rise too fast, with skills too advanced for their supposed beginnings. This is not invention. It is inheritance. If this model is correct, then we are not humanity's first climbers. We are the seventh wave, and each previous wave rose high before breaking against the rocks of a shifting world, whether drowned by oceans, scorched by fire, or buried in ice. The result was the same: a fall so complete it became silence, until someone else rose from the ashes and began again. What destroyed those worlds? Was it climate, cosmic interference, internal collapse? The signs point to a mix of all three. But the common thread is that each civilization was erased faster than it could preserve itself. And if Earth is cyclical, then what happened to them may one day happen to us. The question is not whether it will happen again. The question is whether we'll be ready when it does. Beneath the surface of modern archaeology lies an invisible machinery, not of stone or steel, but of silence. It turns in quiet loops, behind university walls, beneath government offices, and inside museum archives, its purpose is not to explore the unknown, but to keep it sealed. Because every time a discovery surfaces that challenges the official narrative of human history, the same pattern follows. Discredit, disappear, deny. These actions are not isolated mistakes or academic caution, they form a system, a self-correcting mechanism designed to protect something larger than truth, control. This phenomenon is known among fringe researchers as the disappearing trail. A diver discovers strange underwater ruins, captures images of precise stone blocks arranged in perfect geometry, but before the data can be released, it is confiscated. A university team excavates a site that seems far too old, revealing tools or artifacts that contradict the accepted timeline within weeks. The site is shut down and access revoked. A museum curator finds an unclassified object in deep storage, an alloy unknown to ancient metallurgy, but when they try to publish, the artifact disappears, and the records are scrubbed, again and again, around the world. Discoveries with the power to rewrite history vanish. It would be easy to dismiss this as coincidence. Bureaucracy is slow, science is careful, mistakes happen. But coincidences don't repeat across continents. They don't form a global pattern that intensifies as discoveries grow more disruptive. The older the artifact, the more precise the construction, the more advanced the implication, the faster it disappears. And not just from public view, from funding pipelines, from institutional memory, from cultural awareness. Why would this happen? One explanation is institutional inertia. The dominant academic model is built on the belief that civilization began recently around 12,000 years ago and grew slowly over time. If an artifact predates that, or suggests high technology in deep prehistory, it threatens the credibility of those who built their careers defending the official timeline. Rewriting history isn't just uncomfortable, it's career suicide. For some, silence is safer than truth. Another reason is national interest. Many of the most controversial ruins lie near strategic regions, coastal shelves, tectonic hotspots, resource-rich zones. If an underwater structure challenges historical narratives, but also sits above oil deposits or near military training zones, governments may choose to classify it under national security. Discoveries that imply ancient power sources, energetic systems, or lost technologies might hold modern value and modern risk. In such cases, the evidence doesn't vanish out of ignorance, it vanishes out of intent. But there's a third possibility, one that transcends institutions or borders. What if this suppression is not simply about power, or prestige, or political control? What if it's about stability? Because if the public truly knew, that humanity has risen and fallen 6 times before, that our current civilization may be standing at the edge of the same abyss that swallowed all the others, panic would follow. Our sense of progress would dissolve. The illusion of permanence would fracture. In that light, suppressing the past becomes an act of protection, not from enemies, but from knowledge itself. And perhaps those pulling the levers of silence aren't hiding the truth for selfish reasons, but because they believe we aren't ready to face it. History offers many examples of truths deemed too dangerous. The heliocentric model, germ theory, nuclear power. Each was resisted not because it was false, but because it disrupted the status quo. The story of 6 prior civilizations, equal or greater than our own, is the most dangerous truth of all, because it reminds us we are not safe, no matter how advanced we think we are. Still, the patterns of concealment suggest more than academic caution. They hint at preparedness. A diver's footage is intercepted before it reaches public databases. A research paper is withdrawn within days of submission. A satellite photo capturing geometric formations on the ocean floor is deleted hours after upload. These aren't accidents. They suggest a protocol, a standing order to erase anomalies before they can ignite curiosity. This leads to a haunting idea. If such a protocol exists, who created it? Is it the product of a modern effort to manage archaeological controversy? Or is it something far older passed down, hidden in closed circles, protected by tradition? Some speculate that fragments of earlier civilizations may have survived in secret monastic orders, mystery schools, esoteric societies that preserved slivers of knowledge over millennia. They may have evolved into modern institutions with influence in academic, political, or intelligence communities. If true, the silence isn't just about history, it's about memory guarding what little remains of the past from being misused in the present. And still, despite the walls, the truth leaks through. In fragments, in myths, in maps showing Antarctica ice-free before it was officially discovered, in texts that speak of machines powered by sound, of flying vehicles, of wars fought in the sky with weapons of light, in stone structures no one can explain, in artifacts that don't belong. These remnants scream in the face of official silence, daring us to connect the dots, daring us to remember. The strange part is that suppression doesn't just target physical evidence, it targets curiosity. Children are taught a simple, linear history. Ancient people were primitive. Civilization began with Mesopotamia. Anything older is myth. Questioning this is considered fringe, dangerous, or foolish. Even professionals who deviate slightly from the mainstream face ridicule. Careers end. Grants vanish. Access is revoked. The cost of curiosity is exile. But curiosity is persistent, and the evidence is growing harder to hide. With every passing decade, new technologies like ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR, and satellite imaging are exposing the bones of forgotten worlds. Divers return with footage that escapes the eraser. Independent researchers document anomalies faster than they can be silenced. And the internet, though flawed, offers a way for ideas to spread before they can be buried. So, the silence machine adapts. It evolves from denial to dilution. Instead of suppressing ideas, it drowns them in noise. Pseudoscience is promoted alongside real anomalies, so truth and fiction blur. The credible is mixed with the absurd, until the whole conversation becomes a circus. This is the new face of suppression, not erasure, but confusion. Yet through the fog, a simple truth remains. If humanity has lived through 6 forgotten cycles, then we must be willing to confront why those cycles ended, and more urgently, why we are being kept from remembering them. Because somewhere in those suppressed ruins, in those vanished reports and buried artifacts, lies the key to our own future, and, perhaps, to our survival. If the traces of 6 forgotten worlds lie scattered beneath our feet, and if the 7th is the one we now call home, then the 8th is not some distant speculation. It is here, emerging in silence, rising on the fault lines of the present. The signs are all around us, though we often fail to recognize them. Earth is changing not slowly, not gradually, but in abrupt and accelerating rhythms. The same patterns that preceded past collapses are reappearing, and this time, we are not just observers, we are participants, standing at the brink of a turning far older than we dare to admit. Throughout geological time, Earth has pulsed with change, shifts in magnetic fields, surges in volcanic activity, sudden climate oscillations. These are not anomalies, they are cycles, and the modern world has begun to mirror them with unsettling precision. Carbon dioxide levels have soared beyond anything seen in recorded history. Ice sheets fracture with increasing frequency, their collapse threatening to raise sea levels by meters within a single human lifetime. Ocean currents that once stabilized global climates are weakening. Weather extremes grow more violent with each passing year. These aren't isolated events. They are symptoms of a system under stress, and humanity, in its infinite ambition, builds higher, faster, and louder, mistaking momentum for progress. Cities stretch toward the sky. Networks pulse with data, Artificial intelligence learns at a pace even its creators can't fully predict. We believe ourselves to be at the height of civilization, but history suggests that such heights are precisely when the ground gives way. In every cycle before this one, humanity reached for the stars, then fell into silence. But something is different this time. For the first time, we can see the cycle. We can study sediment layers, decode ice cores, analyze fossil records. We can map the past with precision our ancestors lacked. And the pattern is undeniable. Every 10, 0, 0, 0 to 15, 0, 0, 0 years, the Earth resets. Climate upheaval, flood, fire, darkness. And from the ashes, a new civilization rises. Each time stronger, each time more complex, each time unaware it is only the next chapter in an older book. Now we stand at the edge of that book's next turning page. And just as the external world shifts, so too does something inside us. That rare genetic cluster, the one carried by a small fraction of the population, the one linked to endurance, spatial awareness, and environmental instinct, is beginning to awaken. Epigenetic markers show increased activity in pathways designed for survival under extreme stress. Neurological responses to landscape and celestial cues are more pronounced in younger generations. It's as if our bodies are preparing for something they remember. This is not science fiction. This is the quiet reality of biology. Genes that slept for millennia are stirring again, triggered by environmental conditions that mirror those of past collapses. Rising CO2, atmospheric instability, shifting seasons. We are returning to the world that shaped the survivors of the last reset. And those survivors passed on more than stories. They passed on instructions coded not in books, but in blood. At the same time, our technologies are beginning to resemble echoes from the past. Solar power, wireless energy, artificial intelligence, biological computing, planetary engineering. These are not necessarily inventions, they may be recollections. In the Amazon, ancient earthworks suggest a culture that mastered sustainable ecosystems, shaping soil and biodiversity with intention. In the myths of India, flying machines, powered by resonant sound. In Egypt, tales of energy derived from geometry and frequency. We are rediscovering these ideas not through ancient texts, but through necessity, and perhaps instinct. The eighth civilization is not a new world. It is a recurrence, but it holds within it a possibility that never existed before: awareness. For the first time in the known cycle, a civilization has the tools to understand the pattern, to predict its rhythms, to respond consciously rather than react blindly. This could be our greatest advantage or our final illusion, because awareness is not enough. We must choose to act on it, to stop pretending our cities are permanent, our systems infallible, our technologies immortal, to understand that we are not the pinnacle of human history, but the inheritors of forgotten brilliance, that the earth does not care for our timelines or ambitions. It moves to rhythms far older than politics, empires, or industries, and it moves now. The future will not be shaped by denial. It will be shaped by those who see clearly, who look into the past not for nostalgia, but for warning, who understand that the myths of the flood, of the fire, of the fall are not metaphors. They are messages, written in stone, sung through blood, carved into the earth itself. They speak of collapse, yes, but also of survival, of those who prepared, who remembered, who endured. We could be the first civilization to break the pattern, to carry knowledge forward without losing it, to protect our archives, our tools, our wisdom, before the tides rise again. We could use our science not just to build higher, but to dig deeper into the truths we've buried, into the ruins we've ignored, into the stories we've called myth for far too long. But we must move quickly. The cycle waits for no one. If we fail, we will become another whisper, another layer of ash and sediment, another broken fragment for future beings to puzzle over. Our satellites will fall, our cities will flood, our names will fade. But if we succeed, if we remember, then the eighth civilization may become something new. Not just a return, but a transformation. A world that learns from its past, adapts to its future, and dares to see beyond its illusions. A world that survives the turning not through dominance, but through wisdom. The cycle is returning. The signs are here. And what happens next depends not on those in power, but on those who choose to see, because the truth is not buried anymore. It is rising with the seas. It is shaking in the ground. It is whispering in your blood. Now is the time to listen,